My name is Jessica Naert.
I'm Skylar Conover.
I'm Jordan Locke, and we are all graduate students in the Rehabilitation Counseling Program at the University of North Texas.
The following documentary is a conglomeration of interviews we conducted of students with disabilities. We wanted to identify the different barriers that students who have a wide range of disabilities, both visible and invisible, face on a daily basis while attending school.
These barriers can be either physical, social, or emotional. Each of the following individuals you will meet have various approaches, accommodations, and techniques in order to overcome these barriers. These individuals have some ideas of how the previous mentioned barriers can be completely removed.
We hope you enjoy this documentary and that you gain some insight into what students with disabilities face on a daily basis in college.
My name is Melissa McCoy. My classification is a graduate of the University of North Texas, and my disability is dyslexia.
Misty Allen. My classification is a master's student in the counseling program. Disability, I'm blind.
Okay.
My name is Stu Presley. I am a senior at the University of North Texas, and I have issues of PTSD. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder.
My name is Thomas Walker. I am a first-year graduate student, and I have a traumatic brain injury.
Devin Axtman. I'm a senior and I have cerebral palsy.
So there was this anthropologist in Colorado who did her dissertation on blind culture. Okay, and she put out a mass survey asking just people in society what they thought of blind people. The three most commonly used words to define blind people were helpless, hopeless, and pitiable. And that terrifies me.
Yes.
Because none of those need to be true.
No.
The problem is that when you're raised in an environment where that's what you're told you are, people will live up to that. Because you usually have one of two reactions. You fight desperately against it to be something else, or you just fall into the hole and say, well, I'm blind, so I can't do anything. Society's opinions and how they view people who are blind impacts people that are blind in their own self-perception to a massive extent. Most of the time, I don't know that people treat me that way, but that's because I have the tendency to kind of kick those ideas out of their head pretty quickly. I have very little patience for those concepts. But they're not always wrong. But it's a vicious cycle. That's why they're not always wrong. You know, if that's what you think, then that's what you create, and then since that's what's seen, then that continues the cycle of that thought process. It's interesting, there are things that I don't necessarily notice. Like, I had an ex who said that when we would go into a restaurant or something and he would be guiding me and it was obvious that I was blind, people would glance at the two of us and then give him the, "Aw, isn't that sweet, he's dating a little blind girl," like he's some sort of hero, you know, for dating someone with a vision impairment. We talk a lot about how we've advanced past this discrimination, but it's still within people's minds because they're just not exposed.
People don't understand how my brain works. I say my brain because with my injury, it makes me feel like I am different than everybody else. Because they'll say, well, you should think this way. You know what? I know that's how I used to be, but do you want me to be the old me? Or do you want me to accept me for who I am now? Because I am who I am now, and I can't change it. I don't have a time machine to go back 6 years ago and be the old me. So either you live with me now, or you don't accept me now, and we just go on with life, not being friends or not talking because you don't accept a disability.
I don't know, I've been asked a lot of I guess it's come from a posture of like not knowing. I think I've been asked like, oh, do you have a disease or something? Or like, oh, you know, like the guy yesterday, what'd you do to yourself? And I think honestly I just laugh about that stuff. I think just asking like, hey, you know, why do you need to use a wheelchair? Things like that, you know. And even like asking me if I need help when I'm going up a hill. I'll usually say yes, unless it's a really pretty girl that I want to impress. But no. But like sometimes I say no. But I think I'll see people like walking behind me, kind of. I can tell they're thinking like, do I ask? Do I not? Like, so I've always been this person like, oh yeah, like you can ask me for help. Like but I realize not everyone with a disability is like that, because some people want their independence, and I totally respect that. But I don't know. I guess just people thinking it's less weird. It's part of who I am. There's millions of people with disabilities, a lot of people that are worse off than I am. So I guess just it's part of Devin. It shouldn't be weird. You know, I get people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you." I always just kind of laugh, because to me it's really, like I said, it's just part of my life. Like it's who I am. It's not a big deal. So yeah, I think that's a big part of the perception. Like, oh, it's this horrible thing, and I don't know. When I'll get out of my chair and walk, I'll see, you know, surprised looks on people's faces and stuff like that. So I kind of like to shatter that perception a little bit. But I think we are, you know, the disability community, whatever you want to call it, is making strides. You know, since the ADA got enacted, all that stuff, you know, you see a lot more. I mean, there's always more work to be done, but it's a lot. I mean, I think a lot of times we focus on the negative, just because, I don't know, you see something like, wow, it's a lot easier to focus on the negative, I think, but, you know, I think a lot of the perception has changed a lot for the better, and hopefully it continues that way, you know.
Because one of the things about PTSD is every scenario is different. The triggers for everybody is different. What causes me problems may not cause somebody else problems. But one of the things that can definitely be helpful is that the student makes sure that you know, if they do have PTSD issues and problems like that, and they're registered with the Office of Disability Accommodations or the campus psychiatry department, and let them know, say, hey, you know, could you, let my instructors know that I have, you know, this general problem, and, you know, might have some certain situations. The best thing about it, though, is for a student to let their professors know, say, hey, these are some problems that I have that I deal with. Most of the time they're good to go, but every once in a while I might have to excuse myself from a conversation, or might have to just leave class early because I cannot handle that situation.
Every once in a while you run into a professor who has pity, and they want to give you credit that you don't necessarily earn, and that's a big issue to me, because if I earn a good grade, I want to know that I worked hard for it and that I deserve it, not that I got it because I have a disability.
The main quote that I think describes society's understanding of dyslexia is one I heard almost every day in classes: I have dyslexia today. And people would say this, unknowing I had a disability, of course. And I would go up to them, you have dyslexia today? So it's something you can turn off, or it's not that big of a deal. And they said, yeah, I just misspelled something. And of course, that's not the case. There's daily issues that come up. There's spelling. People think it's just something that happens in the spur of the moment. It's a daily endeavor.
I think that everybody struggles and everybody deals with something. The difference is that what I deal with is a little bit more obvious. But we all have our struggles. So you tend to look at everything a little bit differently, and it's hard because I don't think people who can see appreciate what they've got at all, you know, because it's just there. In the same way that I probably don't really appreciate the fact that I can walk around. If I were in a wheelchair, I'd probably look at people who could walk and be like, wow, you have no clue, you know, how easy you have it. But people take their vision for granted, and everything is based on vision. Our society is built in a visual way. The way that we consider aesthetics to be as important as it is. Aristotle believed that vision was the way that people learned, and that if you couldn't see, you couldn't learn, because everything had to be observed visually. And that chain of reasoning still exists in our society.
Think of disability, many people think about the Hollywood idealistic image of a person either with Down syndrome or in a wheelchair, and dyslexia doesn't fit the bill. So this is one point of needing to change this image in society, in movies, in Hollywood, everywhere. Because once we change the image of a standard, it will help gain understanding for society, for the world.
Also, I think a lot of times there's a focus on, you know, people in wheelchairs and people with visual impairments, stuff like that, like the hierarchy of disabilities. I think people with like mental illness, you know, things like that, cognitive disabilities, maybe could receive more help. You know, because it's easy to build a ramp or whatever, but it's a little tougher to deal with some of those. So I think if there isn't any change, that's what I would say.
I have had like some pop quizzes where the TA or the professor will read the question to me out loud, like I step out of the classroom and do it that way. It's really not a good way to go. The stress is too high whenever somebody's staring at you waiting for your answer. There's a lot to be said about the way that they word the question when they read it to you. It's generally not a good idea, but there have been occasions where it's been necessary. So.
Basically, I just take my test at the ODA, so that's probably about it. And I get extra time. I get to type on exams, things like that. I have used a note taker, which is generally I don't, because I don't know, I just like my style of note taking better. I don't know, but yeah, and as far as assistive technology, I really don't have any except for my chair, I guess, if you want to call that assistive technology, which I guess it is.
As hard as I can to be able to get back to, I hate saying normal, because what is normal?
And who defines normal besides society defines normal? And society, in my opinion, is not normal themselves.